You know what is the purpose of pentose phosphate pathway? This is the most important question. Pentose phosphate pathway. The purpose of pentose phosphate pathway. What is the purpose? Okay, just tell me.
NADPH generation.
NADPH production. Okay, generation or production. One. And then second function is to produce
ribose 5-phosphate.
Pentose phosphate. Okay, pentose phosphate. So this pentose phosphate and ribose phosphate, we call ribose phosphate because ribose phosphate is part of ribose phosphate is part of DNA and RNA. Pentose phosphate. So this pentose phosphate can be any phosphate. It can be ribose phosphate. So we take ribose phosphate mainly. Okay, because ribose phosphate we have seen in it is being utilized in very high quantity for synthesis of nucleic acid, DNA and RNA. Other pentose phosphate are also utilized. For example, xylulose. Xylulose 5-phosphate. Xylulose 5-phosphate is utilized for glycoprotein. Okay, it is required for glycoprotein. You can see these are the, so many other phosphates are required for synthesis. Many other pentose phosphate are also required. So we will focus mainly on this phosphate, how this pathway happens. First we will talk about that, then we will talk specifically about this NADPH. What is the role of NADPH? Because if you understand the function of this NADPH, and then you already know the function of this pentose phosphate. So if you understand the function of this pentose 5-phosphate, you will understand the purpose of this pathway. Because purpose of this main purpose of this pathway is production of NADPH. So the main question in this main question of this topic is the understanding of the purpose. So if you understand the purpose, you will answer. You will able to answer. Not only see this WH questions. When you start any pathway, I told you you have to know this WH question. Where does this pathway happens? So it happens in, you can see, actually this pentose phosphate pathway will happen, the enzyme present in almost all cells. But it will, the majority of pentose phosphate, predominantly, it happens in these tissues. So it will happen in adipose tissue because adipose tissue require NADPH for synthesis of fatty acid. Now it will happen in adrenal cortex. The same logic. Here also you'll see steroid hormones are synthesized, and that is why it requires NADPH. NADPH. Here also this adipose tissue require NADPH. This mammary gland during production of milk, it also require fatty acid synthesis. And fatty acid is a very important part of milk. NADPH, here also this will utilize NADPH. And in other gonads, this gonads, you will see a very high rate of replication also is happening. At the same time, there will be, whenever DNA synthesis happens, then also DNA synthesis also require NADPH. I will talk about that, NADPH. DNA synthesis will also require NADPH. And then pentose sugar also will be required in gonads, liver and RBC. RBC membrane production required. So if you see this all tissue, the requirement of pentose phosphate pathway will be mainly because of NADPH. NADPH. Did you understand now? Where does it happen? Why does it happen? So it happens in dividing cell. Why? It requires in dividing cell because dividing cell require DNA. And DNA synthesis require this also. Now detoxifying tissues. For example, liver for detoxification utilize NADPH. Lipid hormones. You can see lipid hormones are present in adrenal gland and gonads. It also releases from gonads. So this and lipid synthesizing cell is adipose. So why does it happen? For this purpose. for division, cell division, for detoxification, for lipid hormone synthesis, for lipid synthesis. This NADPH is required, and that is why this pentose phosphate has to be there. When does it happen? So this, till now we have seen all pathways have classified into fed and fasting condition, but this is need driven pathway. Whenever need is high, it is not related to fasting and fed condition. It is related to need. If need is high, then pathway will be high. There will be high pentose phosphate pathway. If there is need is low, then there will be low activity of pentose phosphate pathway, and that is why these all tissue have high activity of pentose phosphate pathway. And then what are the enzymes, coenzymes are there in this pathway? So these enzymes, you can see this coenzymes are niacin in the form of NADPH. As you know, the NADPH is very integral part of this, and this vitamin B1 is present in transcatalysis. And where else this vitamin B1 present? In addition to this transcatalysis, where else present? Where else vitamin B1 is present? Can anybody tell me? Anyone? Vitamin B1, in addition to this transcatalysis, where else present? Remember, I have taught you in glycolysis Krebs cycle, a very big enzyme, largest enzyme. I told you, largest pyruvate dehydrogenase complex.
Yeah.
It contains vitamin B1. In addition to pyruvate dehydrogenase, also alpha ketoglutarate dehydrogenase. And then in amino acid catabolism, we will study branch chain alpha keto acid dehydrogenase. We will study about that also. So these three enzymes are very similar in structure: PDH, alpha ketoglutarate dehydrogenase, and these three enzymes. They have vitamin B1, B2, B3, lipoic acid, and B5 in common. So they have vitamin B1. These all contain vitamin B1. In addition to that, transcatalysis contain vitamin B1. Only these four enzymes are there in our body that will contain vitamin B1. Otherwise, there is no other enzyme that will contain vitamin B1. And if you see, these all are related to carbohydrate, this glucose metabolism only, because this pentose phosphate pathway is also nothing but glucose 6-phosphate will convert into ribose 5-phosphate, ribulose 5-phosphate, and this glucose 6-phosphate is converting into pyruvate. So this both pathway is pathway of glucose. This is called shunt and this is called pathway, because this is catabolism is purpose of this catabolism is to release energy. Purpose of this is to release this NADPH. So that is why you will see this vitamin B1 is associated with glucose catabolism. You can call that it is related to glucose catabolism. In summary, did you understand now? Then how does it happen? We will see this. How does it happen? So did you all understand? Overview. Did you get an overview of this pathway, pentose phosphate pathway?
Yes, sir.
Yes. So now we will talk about the pathway. Actually, pathway in detail is not important. I will tell you in a very simple way. So this pathway is very unique type of pathway. You will see many of the carbohydrates, monosaccharide come in this pathway. So here one monosaccharide, you will see 7 carbon monosaccharide come in pseudoheptulase. It is a, whenever you see two-lose, this is a keto sugar. Now again you will see hexose, glucose and fructose both will come in this pathway. 6 carbon, then again 5 carbon. The name itself, the pentose phosphate pathway also itself derived from pentose. That is why you can see ribose, ribulose, and xylulose. These all pentose sugars are present, and pentose sugar can convert into each other, no problem. There are epimerase enzyme that can, epimerase and other isomerase enzymes are there that can be utilized to convert this pentose sugar into each other, and that is how pentose sugar is supplied to the need of our body. So this is 5 carbon. Now 4 carbon is also there. Erythrose is there. and 3 carbon also you'll see. So 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, all classification that we have studied in MD1 about monosaccharide, we will see all these carbohydrate in this pathway. So let's see this pathway. Let's see this, talk about this pathway in very short form. And if you remember, this is very easy to remember. This, if you remember this pentose phosphate pathway, you will remember everything about pentose phosphate pathway. And for answering question, you need to remember this only. So you can see this pentose phosphate pathway. It has got 2 phases. One is oxidative phase. Second phase is non-oxidative phase. Okay. First phase is oxidative phase and second phase is non-oxidative phase. And oxidative phase, you know this, because of oxidation, you have also seen this glucose when converts into pyruvate, it will release energy. Here you can see it will release NADPH. So it is a similar to energy equivalent. It has high energy compound. So oxidative phase, because of oxidation, NADPH is produced, and this is irreversible phase. This is oxidative phase, is irreversible phase. Okay, and this is reversible phase. Non-oxidative phase is reversible phase. Reversible phase. Now you can see this reversible phase. So from glucose, this ribulose can be produced through oxidative phase, and from glucose through this reversible pathway, ribulose can also be produced through reversible pathway. If you really think about this irreversible pathway, just you have to add one more thing, glucose 6-phosphate here also. So isn't this conversion of glucose 6-phosphate to fructose 6-phosphate a reversible reaction? Tell me. How many steps are there for pentose phosphate pathway? Stages are there?
2.
Which are those steps? Stages?
Oxidative stage and non-oxidative stage.
Okay. Oxidative stage and non-oxidative stage. Which is reversible? Which is irreversible?
Non-oxidative is non-oxidative is irreversible.
Okay. Then see, you understand. Oxidative is irreversible and non-oxidative is reversible. Now, if you have to get this pentose phosphate pathway, is it necessary for cell to go through this oxidative phase in order to get this ribose 5-phosphate?
So can you repeat that?
In order to get this ribose 5-phosphate, is it necessary for the cell to go through this oxidative phase?
Yes.
No, you can also get it from the non-oxidative, the fructose 6.
Yes.
phosphate.
Is right.
It's not necessary.
Oh yeah, because the fructose 6 is
Yes,
Glucose 6-phosphate can convert into fructose 6-phosphate, and this can convert into this. So from reversible phase also you can get a ribose 5-phosphate. But can you get this NADPH from irreversible phase?
no.
So this irreversible phase, that is oxidative phase, is specific for production of NADPH. Okay, this oxidative phase is for NADPH, not for ribose 5-phosphate. Did you get that?
Yes, sir.
Whenever there is requirement of NADPH, this glucose has to convert into ribose 5-phosphate. And this later, if cell does not require this ribose 5-phosphate, will convert into fructose 6-phosphate, and then again the cycle will go on and on. So production of NADPH, the main thing is production of NADPH is done by oxidative phase. So oxidative, that is why oxidative phase is very important for production of NADPH. And for production of ribulose, this pentose sugar, oxidative phase is not required. It can directly be converted into this. So remember the purpose of 2 phases. Now you can see these phases are also very easy. You can see very two enzyme are involved in this oxidative phase. And here also you can see two more important enzymes. Though there you will see find a 3-step. Here also 3 steps you will find. The enzyme are two only, main enzyme. So very first enzyme, that enzyme name of this enzyme is called G6PD. Do you remember this? Glucose 6-phosphate dehydrogenase. So this deficiency of this enzyme is related to a serious problem called hemolytic anemia. Lytic anemia. So this is one of the part of this pentose phosphate, important part of pentose phosphate pathway. So you can, this way you can easily remember the pathway. You don't have to go into detail of the pathway, just understand there are two phases. First is oxidative phase, second is non-oxidative phase. If you try to go through the pathway, you will get confused, you will not remember things. And oxidative phase is dedicated for synthesis of NADPH, and NADPH cannot be synthesized from non-oxidative. But this ribose phosphate can be synthesized from this non-oxidative phase also, and that is why for synthesis of ribose 5-phosphate, ribulose 5-phosphate, this phase is not required. So remember this important thing. And now you know this NADPH is required where? So NADPH is required for reductive biosynthesis. So I have been telling you this very important terminology. Reductive biosynthesis. Reductive biosynthesis, I told you, biosynthesis, synthesis of something that happens through reduction. And NADPH, if you can see this acetyl coenzyme A, I have taught you this acetyl coenzyme A will convert into fatty acid, and when it converts into fatty acid, it requires NADPH, and this is anabolism. Now if you have seen glucose being converted into pyruvate. So when glucose converts into pyruvate, so what happens is glucose will utilize what? Glucose will produce NADPH, NAD plus NADH. So you can see from this is catabolism, and NADH will produce ultimately ATP. And from this you can find out a very big difference between the metabolism of NADPH and NADH. NADPH, you will see it is utilized for anabolism mainly, and NADH is involved in catabolism. So NADH with catabolism, NADPH is with anabolism. Remember this very big difference. If you remember this big difference, you will understand metabolism. So NADPH is involved in which pathway? Anabolism or catabolism? NADPH. NADPH is involved in which pathway? Anabolism or catabolism?
Anabolism.
And NADH is involved in which pathway? Anabolism or catabolism? Catabolism. So remember, this is a big difference, and that is why I have used term biosynthesis. Anabolism means biosynthesis. How biosynthesis? Reductive, through reduction. That is why cellular reductive biosynthesis. In cellular reductive biosynthesis, NADPH is involved. So this is a very important concept you need to understand. So did you all understand up to this? Ribose 5-phosphate will convert into PRPP, and you know how PRPP converts into base is synthesized through de novo synthesis pathway, and then nucleotide RNA DNA will be synthesized. You already know this through this pentose ribose 5-phosphate pathway. And ribose 5-phosphate ribulose or ribose 5-phosphate can convert into each other to fructose, and fructose 6-phosphate can convert into ribulose 5-phosphate through this two set of enzymes. One is transketolase, other is transaldolase. As you have seen here, this enzyme is important. Here also you have to remember this enzyme at least, transketolase. Even if you don't remember this, no problem, but you have to remember here transketolase. Here you have to remember G6PD. So this pathway, doesn't this pathway look very easy? This way? This way it is very easy. So if you remember this much, it will work for you. And now you can see this transketolase. What does transketolase do? Always So this trans-ketolase, trans-aldolase are transferase. This transfer always happens from aldose to keto sugar. So part of carbon. So you can see this carbon, if it is present, carbon is present. Part of carbon is transferred from this aldose sugar to keto sugar, and this transfer happens always from aldose and keto sugar. Now you can see this trans-ketolase. You can remember K2-lase. So trans-ketolase will transfer 2 carbon from this aldose to ketose. Aldolase, trans-aldolase will transfer 3 carbon. You can see here 3 carbon from this aldose to keto sugar. Here 2 carbon from aldose. So that is the big difference between these two reaction mechanism. So trans-ketolase will transfer how many carbon? 2 carbon, and trans-aldolase will transfer how many carbon? 3 carbon. Did you understand? Read this.
Yes, sir.
So understand this. If you understand this, then pathway you will understand the pathway. Actually, this will work for you. I will talk about pathway also, no problem, but this will be very important for you, and it is very easy to handle also. This much information is very easy to handle. The name itself suggests pentose phosphate pathway, and from this glucose 6-pentose is formed, and from again this pentose can be converted into hexose. So you can see this, and that is why this pathway is called shunt. You can see this can convert into this, and this can convert into this. This is like cycle, and cycle for production with loss of, here will be loss of 1 CO2. Every conversion will really, there will be release of 1 CO2, and this cycle will go. That is why this is called shunt. And main purpose of this is to production of this through this, and this second purpose is to production of this. So if you remember the purpose, you will remember the pathway easily. Now, as I have told you, what is the role of this pentose phosphate pathway in adrenal gland? Steroid synthesis. So steroid hormone synthesis, you know, the aldosterone, progesterone, aldosterone is synthesized, and then glucocorticoid cortisol is synthesized, and then this sex corticoid, premature sex corticoid will be synthesized in adrenal cortex. This liver, you know, fatty acid synthesis that we have seen in MD1, and cholesterol synthesis required NADPH. Testis, again steroid hormone synthesis. Adipose tissue, fatty acid synthesis. Ovary, again steroid hormone synthesis required NADPH. All require NADPH and DPH. In addition to NADPH, also they require pentose phosphate, because you can see ovary, and these are the tissue, ovary, testis, they divide rapidly, and division of them require pentose sugar, and pentose sugar is also supplied by this pentose phosphate pathway only. Generally, whenever we talk about pentose phosphate pathway, generally we focus on this. Okay, and conceptually, if you understand, all cell that require highly active cell, all highly active cell, they require, they will produce RNA, they will produce DNA, and those cells which produce RNA, DNA will require pentose phosphate pathway. And these are the main tissue which has very high activity of pentose phosphate pathway. It is not that other tissue does not have pentose phosphate pathway. There is pentose. This tissue are the tissue where pentose phosphate pathway is very, activity is very high. So last but not the this, don't forget this red blood cells, because it is this NADH, NADPH here is utilized to maintain membrane integrity. This is very important. Now let's see this. So what are the actually purpose of this NADPH? What are the purpose of this NADPH? You can see these are the purpose of NADPH here. NADPH here you will see is required for, as we have seen, fatty acid synthesis. We have seen, if you can remember, this is the acetyl coenzyme A, and acetyl coenzyme A, the bond is formed between acetyl coenzyme A. If you can remember, there is formation of this bond here like this, and this bond formation will occur through 4-step process. The 4-step process is CR-DR. You can see CR-DR, 2R is there. And this 2R means 2-NADPH. So 2-NADPH is required for formation of every bond between acetyl coenzyme for fatty acid synthesis. So fatty acid synthesis. And do you remember this enzyme, ribonucleotide reductase? Anyone? Nucleotide diphosphate is converted into deoxynucleotide diphosphate by this ribonucleotide reductase. Here utilization of, indirectly utilization of NADPH is there. So synthesis, so you know this, DNA contain deoxyribonucleotide. So D and TP, and means nucleotide diphosphate, will be required for DNA synthesis. Now, if there is no NADPH or lack of NADPH, DNA synthesis will suffer. So DNA synthesis, you can say DNA synthesis require NADPH. Cholesterol synthesis, we have done cholesterol metabolism. So cholesterol synthesis, metabolism will require NADPH. Neurotransmitter, especially synthesis of nitric oxide, catecholamines, and the indolamines means serotonin. These require NADH. So you can see these are variety of molecules are required for synthesis of variety of molecule requires NADPH. So lipid synthesis, then lipid hormone synthesis. So lipid is done. Again, genetic material synthesis, DNA. Then what else? Neurotransmitter synthesis, brain health. So everything, genetics require NADPH. Biochemistry, lipid synthesis require NADPH. Neuroscience require NADPH. So NADPH is very important in that. Therefore, NADPH and pharmacology also require NADPH. So this enzyme, cytochrome 450 monooxygenase system. This is an integral part of, I have told you, this membrane. This is endoplasmic reticulum. This is very important part of endoplasmic reticulum. It is present in the membrane, and function of this enzyme is to metabolize drug, hydroxylation of drugs, and then also this very enzyme, this cytochrome 450 system is also involved in heme catabolism and free radical detoxification. Did you get that?
Yes, sir.
Free radical detoxification is involved in RBC. We will talk about this free radical detoxification. So these are the functions. So you can categorize into three parts. One is cellular biosynthesis, synthesis of lipid, DNA, and neurotransmitter. Here, detoxification. So detoxification of drug, detoxification of that heme that is released from lysis of hemoglobin, and detoxification of this free radical. And that would damage RBC membrane if it is not detoxified. So free radical detoxification, drug detoxification, and then heme detoxification. So these are the cellular detox, cellular biosynthesis, cellular detoxification, and then third enzyme is NADPH oxidase. NADPH oxidase is required in immunity for oxygen burst phenomenon. So oxygen burst, we will talk about oxygen burst. What is it? Is like, so when this is macrophage. When this macrophage engulfs bacteria, so what will happen after it engulfs bacteria into the cell? So it is the engulfed bacteria. So what this macrophage has to kill this bacteria. So what will happen? I will illustrate here this. So what will happen at the membrane? There is NADPH oxidase that will convert NADPH, will react with oxygen. So NADPH oxidase will catalyze this reaction. It will convert into NADPH, and oxygen will H2O2. So hydrogen peroxide, and you know this free radical is very toxic. And with this hydrogen peroxide, chloride will bind, and this will form hypochlorite. sodium chloride will come, and this will come a hypochlorous, OCl minus. This hypochloric ion is very toxic to bacteria, and this will attack the bacteria and destroy the bacteria. If this process is absent, there will be disease, and this phenomenon is called oxygen burst, because oxygen will produce free radical. Oxygen will convert into a bomb that will actually destroy that. It will be converted into a type of missile, by molecular missile, and this molecular missile will attack the bacteria, destroy the bacteria, and this is why this is called oxygen burst phenomenon. This is called oxygen burst phenomenon. It is catalyzed by NADPH oxidase. Now this thyroid hormone synthesis also requires NADPH. Did you get that? Now let's see this. So you will see, I told you this NADP, this PPP is need driven pathway. So in RBC, what is required in RBC is, you will see NADPH is required in RBC. So glucose 6-phosphate will convert into ribose 5-phosphate. Now this ribose and RBC, you know, it also, RBC also depends on glycolysis. At the same time, this ribose 5-phosphate will convert into fructose 6-phosphate, and fructose 6-phosphate will convert into glucose 6-phosphate, and this glucose 6-phosphate will undergo glycolysis. So you can see, and there will be production of NADPH. So you can see in this tissue there will be production of NADPH plus this ribose 5-phosphate will convert into this, and there will be high amount of glycolysis, and that is why this process will go. So this pathway will work there. But here in adrenal gland, you will see glucose 6-phosphate will convert into ribose 5-phosphate, and this ribose 5-phosphate can again convert into, through fructose 6-phosphate, it can convert into glucose 6-phosphate. There will be production of NADPH. So this cycle goes on, and this cell can utilize energy from fatty acids. So no problem with that. And there will not be, even this glucose converts into this, glucose will form pyruvate, and from pyruvate you will see it will go complete oxidation in this tissue. It will produce carbon dioxide. So you can see from one glucose, this cell can extract many energy. So this pathway will be like this. Here this pathway will be like this. What I want to say is this pentose phosphate pathway is very flexible, because when here in testis you can see glucose 6-phosphate will convert into pentose phosphate, ribose 5-phosphate. In this, these are dividing tissue. What will happen in this dividing tissue? This will also be utilized. Ribose 5-phosphate will also be utilized, and then what happens? This NADPH will also be required. So in such tissue, this will be the predominant pathway. Non-oxidative will be the predominant pathway. This will come, this will also be utilized, and NADPH will also be utilized. What I want to say is, so this pathway is very flexible pathway. It can adapt to the need of these cells. Did you all understand?
Yes, sir.
So why is pentose phosphate pathway also called HMP shunt? I gave you a glimpse. You can see the shunt means diversion. It is a diversion of glycolysis. See, glucose 6-phosphate. You can see it will convert in fructose 6-phosphate. Can you see? And glucose 6-phosphate can convert into ribose 5-phosphate. And this ribose 5-phosphate can again convert into this reversible pathway through fructose 6-phosphate and glycolysis. So that is why this is a bit of diversion. Can you see the diversion here? So this is why this is called shunt. That is why the name is given is shunt to this pathway. So this is what you can see. Here also you can see at this phase also glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate is also produced from, and this is a shunt like bypass in the glycolysis. That is why this is called exose monophosphate shunt. Now, if we have to talk about the pathway, so we have Oh, 15 minutes more. So oxidative phase, you can see this oxidative phase. Oxidative phase happens in two stages. First stage, I told you, first enzyme is G6PD, glucose 6-phosphate dehydrogenase enzyme. So this will remove proton hydrogen from this glucose 6-phosphate and oxidize this glucose 6-phosphate to 6-phosphogluconate and produce one NADPH. Now second step is you can see again it is a dehydrogenase. There is 3 steps, but 2 steps are important. That is why I am showing you 2 steps only. Now 6-phosphogluconate dehydrogenase. Anyway, this dehydrogenase will release. This is 6-phosphogluconate and dehydrogenase will release again NADPH. It will again produce NADPH, and here in second step you will see the production of CO2. So this will convert into ribulose 5-phosphate. Here also ribulose 5-phosphate. Here also ribulose. So the purpose of showing this 3 ribulose 5-phosphate is that so we need to show a pathway, reversible pathway, how reversible pathway works. So we will write ribulose phosphate pathway here. So this is 5-carbon compound. This is also 5-carbon. This is also 5-carbon compound. Now you will see the first step and last step. You can see first and last step. First step, okay, this will convert into a keto sugar. Ribulose will convert into other form of keto sugar, xylulose, because xylulose and ribose reacts, not other. Xylulose and ribose will react. Keto sugar, xylulose, and aldose sugar, ribose will react. So this will convert into xylulose. This is also 5-carbon. This is also 5-carbon. This is also 5-carbon. And you know the carbon is transferred from this keto sugar. This is keto sugar to aldose sugar. So first step and last step, you can see last step and first step. This is done by which enzyme? Transketolase. So what will happen is 2 carbon will be transferred here. From this keto sugar to this sugar, 2 carbon will be transferred. So result will be this 5 minus 2 will become 3 carbon, which is glyceraldehyde. Now 2 carbon will be added. This becomes 7-carbon compound, pseudoheptulase. Now second reaction is transaldolase. You can see transaldolase is transfer of 3 carbon from keto. This is 7 sugar. This is aldose sugar. From keto sugar to aldose sugar. So this will make this fructose. From keto sugar to aldose sugar, 3 carbon is being transferred because of transaldolase. So this will make fructose 6-phosphate. And here you will get 7 minus 4 will be 7 minus 3 is 4. So erythrose. Now erythrose is a aldose sugar. Aldose sugar. So aldose sugar will get again, this aldose sugar will receive 2 carbon from this xylose. So 2 carbon it will get from xylose, and this erythrose will convert into fructose 6-phosphate, and there will be glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate. So glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate will get one glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate from other, and it will convert into fructose. So this glyceraldehyde, that is why designated into half fructose. You can see this 3 ribulose 5-phosphate will convert into 2.5 glucose ultimately, or you can say 5 carbon will convert into 5 glucose. 6 ribulose will convert into 5 glucose. So this is reversible pathway. Isn't it look very complicated? Doesn't it look very complicated? Anyone? Tell me. Yes? Dibya? Yes? Does it seem complicated? Little bit complicated it is, but you don't have to memorize. Just understand this pathway, that's it. So you will see there are only actually 3 steps here. You will see practical 3 steps. First and last step is transaldolase. Between step is transaldolase. If you have to draw the pathway also, sometimes you will never have to draw. But if you want to draw, then you can easily draw. If you understand how transaldolase does, it will transfer 2 carbon from this keto to aldose, and this will transfer 3 carbon from keto to aldose again. And this is how you can remember. This also transfer 2 carbon, trans-ketolase from this keto sugar to aldose sugar. This is how it will form fructose. So this is the actually reversible pentose phosphate pathway. This oxidative phase is very easy to understand also. Non-oxidative phase is a bit complicated, but don't worry about that. Just understand this purpose, DNA synthesis from ribose sugar, and then this purpose of this. That's it. And you have to memorize, okay, oxidative phase and non-oxidative phase. What are the enzymes in oxidative phase? 2 enzymes in oxidative phase. Which is more important enzyme? Glucose 6-phosphate dehydrogenase. Non-oxidative phase, it is reversible. Oxidative phase, it is irreversible. Non-oxidative phase, how many enzymes? 2 enzymes. What are those 2 enzymes? One is trans-ketolase, trans-aldolase. Which is more important enzyme? Trans-ketolase. Why? Because it contains vitamin B1. And this trans-ketolase is used as laboratory. It is used for laboratory test. Laboratory test. To estimate level of vitamin B1. Vitamin B1 deficiency. Level of vitamin B1 or vitamin B1 deficiency. So this is the significance of trans-ketolase. That is why you need to know about trans-ketolase. We call it trans-ketolase test. Trans-ketolase test. So trans-ketolase test is test for what? Vitamin B1. Did you get that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So this is the I have already told you 3 functions. What are the 3 functions of this pentose phosphate NADPH? First function is cellular. What is the first function? First is cellular biosynthesis. What is this second function? Tell me. Cellular detoxification. Don't forget at least this bold lines. Detoxification. What is the third function of NADPH? NADPH oxidase. And this NADPH oxidase is oxidative burst and thyroid hormone. So that's all you have to remember about the function of NADPH. Now you can see the one function of NADPH. This is cellular detoxification. Can you see cellular detoxification? Can you see here NADPH? Now this NADPH, this is a big complex. I have already shown you this picture. So this is not new picture. You can see many proteins that are anchored in the endoplasmic reticulum. And this protein complex, this is a protein complex. It contains heme and it contains FAD, FMN, vitamin B2, containing this whole protein complex. And electron, actually it extract this hydrogen proton from this, and then it will, what does it do? It will hydroxylate a compound. For example, R group. It will convert this R group into ROH group. So this is what does this cytochrome 450 system. This enzyme is called cytochrome 450 system enzyme. This is a macrosomal. Macrosome means the endoplasmic reticulum enzyme. And this is very important for detoxification, drug metabolism, drug detoxification. And then heme catabolism. We will talk about heme catabolism after this. And then cholesterol synthesis also, because cholesterol hormone synthesis especially, you will see the cholesterol hormone or bile salt synthesis required. This is cholesterol. So there will be hydroxylation at many places during synthesis of drug. Steroid hormone. And then that time also the same group of enzyme will be involved. Not same enzyme, but there are many enzymes in the same group, cytochrome 450 system. And this enzyme has very similar type of mechanism of action. This all enzyme does one reaction only, hydroxylation reaction. And this is called monooxygen because hydroxyl has got one oxygen. That is why this is called monooxygenase. This is a monooxygenase. And this will cause drug detoxification, heme catabolism, cholesterol synthesis, and then metabolism, and all many functions, much more functions. So did you all understand this cytochrome 450 system? You can see. Yes? Yes, please.
Yes, sir.
So did you understand? If you don't understand, I can repeat. Whatever if you don't understand, let me know.
Okay.
These are easy chapter, but very important chapter. Very easy chapter, not that difficult. You can see NADPH being utilized by this enzyme. Let's see this question. A 45-year-old man with Mediterranean ancestry present with jaundice. He also reports being unusually tired and believes this may be due to a recent recovery from infectious mononucleus. It is a viral disease. So he was found to be anemic with hemoglobin. Hemoglobin being 9 gram per deciliter. His peripheral smear revealed bite cells and Hinge bodies. So what would be the diagnosis?
G6PD deficiency.
Yes, G6PD deficiency. G6PD deficiency. G6PD deficiency, and we have studied in MD1. There is one more enzyme that will cause hemolytic anemia, is pyruvate kinase deficiency. Now, pyruvate kinase deficiency does not have this too. Okay, it lacks this bite cells and Hinge body. So remember this, pyruvate kinase deficiency will lack these two. The difference between this pyruvate kinase, both will appear in children. Here you will see 25-year-old, but this will be severe, more severe. Pyruvate kinase will be more severe. It will not have this. But G6PD will have less severe and episodic. G6PD is episodic, and it will have bite cell and Hinge bodies. Remember this two important finding, and this you will see this problem, G6PD deficiency, you will see in Mediterranean region, around Mediterranean region, around Arabian countries, few Arabian countries, and then European countries that surround Mediterranean Sea. So in those ancestry is associated with this G6PD deficiency predominantly. So diagnosis is G6PD deficiency, and pathogenesis, we will see the pathogenesis of this disorder. You can see this is RBC membrane. So this is RBC membrane. You can see this RBC membrane, any membrane is made up of this lipid. So in lipid, I told you the second part is, the second lipid is unsaturated. One lipid is saturated, second is unsaturated. Here you can see this unsaturated lipid are there. So this is lipid, unsaturated lipid. So second lipid is unsaturated lipid. Here like this. Now what will happen if this RBC is very high in oxygen, because function of RBC itself is to carry oxygen. So RBC has very high oxygen concentration. Okay, so this oxygen inside RBC, I'm talking about inside the RBC, I'm not talking outside. You can see this oxygen inside RBC can convert into free radicals, superoxide radical, or it can convert into a peroxide free radical. It can convert into a peroxide free radical, and this free radical can attack the double bond that is present here on the membrane. See this is a magnification of this. So this can be present, this can actually attack the double bond on here, and this double bond you will get, this double bond will get peroxide here like this. So this double bond will be, this will damage lipid, this will damage lipid, and if lipid is damaged, is because of this free radical, if lipid is damaged, what will happen? Integrity will be lost. Did you get that?
Yes, sir.
Now what happens? But normally this hydrogen free radical does not get chance to attack this double bond, because in between that what will happen? The NADH, I'm writing directly NADH, I will make you understand why and how NADH comes. It is indirectly comes here. So NADPH. So NADPH indirectly comes here. and actually this hydrogen will bind with this here, and this will convert into H2. And that is why this NADH will protect our membrane. And NADH is derived from pentose phosphate pathway. Through which enzyme? G6PD. This is the first enzyme. If this enzyme is absent, there will not be any pentose phosphate pathway. So what happens is this enzyme is not completely deficient. It is deficient but not completely deficient. It is, for example, maybe 50% deficient, 70% deficient, but 30% is always there. And that 30% will not meet that demand when oxidative stress inside cell increases. Okay, will not meet the demand when oxidative stress inside cell increases. And then when oxidative stress inside cell increases, give me a few minutes. We will start a bit late because the next class is also our class. So let me finish this part. So when oxidative stress increases, what will happen? There will be high production of this free radical, H2O2 peroxide or superoxide. And then what will happen? This peroxide will be neutralized by an enzyme called glutathione peroxidase. And it requires this glutathione. Glutathione is what? Glutathione is cysteine containing enzyme. You can see SH group is there. So glutathione is a not enzyme, it is a chain. It has a cysteine here. It has cysteine SH like this. So if this cysteine, this H group will neutralize this H2O2 into H2O. So glutathione peroxidase get H from here and then it will go. Now what will happen? This molecule, this SH, now convert into this. This will like dimer. It will become dimer. This is GS and this is GS. So this GS will, this is disulfide bond. So this will form a dimer. This double dimer glutathione. Now if this glutathione is not rejuvenated, so what will happen next? There will be a scarcity. Ultimately this will be consumed and there will be not be, this membrane will not be protected because it will attack the membrane. It will not be neutralized. It will be attack membrane. So what will happen is this NADH. NADH will again rejuvenate. So ultimately you can see indirectly this NADH is actually neutralizing H2O2 into H2O, though through double step. This NADH will rejuvenate this glutathione dimer, and this glutathione dimer will neutralize this free radical. NADPH rejuvenate glutathione, and this glutathione will rejuvenate this neutralize free radical. So this is how it will happen. And now glutathione is derived from this glucose 6-phosphate through NADPH. Sorry, NADH is derived from glucose 6-phosphate. So this is 3 enzymes are there that will actually function in sequence. So this pentose phosphate pathway, this is a part of pentose phosphate pathway. It will supply NADPH, and NADPH will neutralize H2O2, this peroxide to H2. And this peroxide production will be high when there is oxidative stress. What is the oxidative stress? These are the oxidative, certain drugs, infection, and pharmaceuticals. So did you understand right now?
Yes, sir.
Now, so if there is high oxidative stress and this is not there, so membrane damage will happen and hemolytic anemia will happen. So this is pathogenesis. We will end here.